What's in your box?
For several years now, Dodge, Chrysler, and Jeep vehicles have been plagued with oil and coolant leaks coming from the oil filter housing, which is located under the intake manifold and in the valley of the engine block. And because of the frequency and repairs needed for these vehicles and the housings, many myths and misconceptions have been formed about the reason why and what the correct fix might be. So today, we're going to discuss the cause, the correction, and why NAPA Echlin Tech Expert oil filter housings are the aftermarket leader and the right part to get the job done right the first time. Now, modular oil filter housings are becoming increasingly popular in modern vehicles, replacing the older spin-on style filters. But they don't just filter the oil, they also cool it. These housings contain passages for both oil and coolant, and the passages are very close together, so even one failed seal can easily cause cross-contamination. And in addition to that, they have been designed to properly cool the oil under extreme conditions. So it's important that any replacement unit matches the heat dissipating characteristics of the original design, meaning that the housing should be made up of the same type materials to ensure proper cooling. Well, if the design and materials used are correct, then why do they fail? Well, let's talk about it. The myth is that the housing warps due to heat, causing oil to leak. But the fact is, the high-strength, heat-resistant housing doesn't actually warp. There are just simply some weak points in the design allowing oil to find the path of least resistance and then pass on through. At Echlin, we have identified these weak points, corrected them, and now installers can replace the oil filter housing with confidence, knowing that the customer will not be returning with another puddle of oil in the valley or on their driveway. So what are the flaws and how do we correct them? Well, first, we looked at the core plugs in the rear of the housing. Now, these plugs are a byproduct of manufacturing and simply fill in the hole once the build is complete. Now, the design calls for these to just be pressed in and ultrasonically welded, which in theory should be enough. But we're talking about oil here, and without a seal, there's no guarantee that it won't find a way out. So what did we do? We added seals. We now install O-rings on all of the core plugs before ultrasonically welding them onto the housing. And this creates a positive, long-lasting seal. And then second, we looked at the front of the housing where the sensors are threaded in. Now, this housing includes both the oil temperature sensor and the oil pressure sensor. And the oil actually leaks between the brass insert and the housing itself. So once again, the Tech Expert solution was to correct this by properly sealing the insert and the housing where they meet. Multiple seals are now installed on the brass inserts. 2 are installed on the knurled brass insert for the oil pressure sensor, and then we have 1 that is installed on the insert for the oil temperature sensor. The sensors are also then pre-installed in a controlled environment. Third, we looked at the mating of the oil filter housing and the engine, and there are multiple seals in between. Over time, the seal material can become distorted or crushed and fail. So we had an easy decision to make, and we now pre-install new distortion-resistant seals with a synthetic material that is less prone to distortion and failure compared to the original. And finally, we added an internal seal between the coolant and oil passages to prevent cross-contamination. The heat exchanger is also pre-installed at the factory in a controlled environment, so you don't have to worry about attaching it yourself. So now the replacement option is pretty clear. There's no need to change the housing material or reattach the old components to a new style that promotes less warping, because the warping was never the issue. The Tech Expert solution of properly sealing the original design and ensuring distortion-resistant seals is the correct fix for these oil filter housings. And as an added bonus, it comes complete with all new sensors, a new heat exchanger, new intake gaskets, and because we use the original design, they maintain the OE-style oil filter that comes pre-installed in the new housing. No need to cross-reference or keep up with multiple part numbers when the next oil change comes due. And before we go, a quick tip is this. Before reinstalling the new housing, make sure the valley is cleaned and no oil is left standing from the prior leak. If this step in the R&R process is neglected, standing oil in the valley may drain down to the ground, causing you to think a new leak is formed. And that's a lot of work to verify after the fact. So clean up before you wrap up. Thanks for watching, and be on the lookout for future videos just like this.